views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming on this edition of Perspectives, it's called the Neo Jazz Fusion Movement. And in a few minutes, our guest today will share his unique style and talk about his journey and influence as a young musician. We're talking Neo Jazz music. We're talking Thanksgiving edition right here on Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind? Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference in someone's life. Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime. As always, we want to welcome you for joining Perspectives every week here on BronxNet's Channel 67. Want to also give a special shout out during this Thanksgiving week to say happy Thanksgiving to all those who are out there watching. Now, listen, if you want to watch Perspectives, you always can here on BronxNet's Channel 67. You can always go to our website at bronxnet.org, and then we know about social media. Well, our Facebook page and Twitter page is found at BronxNet TV. That's all of our social media platforms. If you're trying to reach me personally on Facebook, you can hit my professional page, Daren C. Jaime, and then also my Instagram and Twitter page, DCJaime23. There you can get some information as well as some inspiration as well. Well, coming up on today's Thanksgiving episode, we are pleased to have a very special guest. Our guest, a Juilliard grad, downbeat rising jazz violinist, and also leader of the Neo Jazz Fusion Movement. He's been described as having a unique blend of improvisation as well as groove and technical sophistication. In the year 2008, he was the recipient of the prestigious Edward and Sally Van Leer's Fellowship Award for Composition. And then from 2015 through 2017, he was named the Rising Star Violinist by Downbeat Magazine, and most recently, a Brio Award recipient. And he joins me now here on Perspectives. Pleased to be joined by jazz violinist and composer, Majid Khaliq. And Majid, good to have you.
Nice to be with you, Daren. Thanks for inviting me out.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to you, my brother. And certainly during this season, we have a lot to give thanks for, but specifically for this show today, thank you for coming and hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanksgiving to you as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak about the music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, share with us. I mean, I talked a little bit about your work, when we talk about being a violinist and a very well-renowned violinist and your passion. How did you get to the place of being this violinist that we all know?
Well, I mean, I started out very young, age 5. I was studying at Harlem School of the Arts. And, from there, I just developed a passion for the pitch and tone of the fiddle. I really enjoyed it. I thought it sounded like singing, so my mom enrolled me. I asked when I saw my brother kind of playing, and she said, "Hey, you can be part of this thing." And I said, "Okay, fine." And from then on, I was on my way, starting up, studying classical music piece by piece, and just enjoying the agility of the instrument, the striking vocal quality of the instrument, and the command that it demanded when heard. When you could really hear the beauty of the instrument, and it always commanded a certain amount of ear space and respect. So I really just loved that about it.
Yeah. You talked about coming up at HSA, Harlem School of the Arts, and for me, very special because, I'm born and raised in Harlem, and I know that a lot of people got their start right there, in Harlem. But walk me through a little bit of that about, your inception, going through the Harlem School of the Arts and what that actually did for you in regards to having this music career that you have right now.
Sure. The Harlem School of the Arts is a very special place to me because, first and foremost, all of my brothers, I'm one of three, so I have an older and a younger brother. They all studied the violin, and there it was a place where people of African American descent kind of were developing their talents kind of in an insular space. It was a very, very small community, and it had old-fashioned values in the sense that the kids were from homes where there was a lot of direction and there was a lot of just belief in self. So when I was there coming up, listening, learning, I always had friends and colleagues, or then they were, just playmates that were really directed and knew where they were going in this life. And the education was Afrocentric in nature, in the sense that, downstairs we had African dance, we had jazz, a little bit further down, we had African drums just a couple of doors down. And it's funny because as I was developing and learning this, at the time I was studying classical music, I was always kind of dropping into the African drums class, just kind of checking it out, or dropping into, the art class where they had, they were studying and pursuing African Americans based visual arts. It was all, it gave me a sense of self that allowed me to walk into the space of jazz music, which I had already been hearing at home and been influenced at the school and in my immediate culture, to really step into it with a good amount of strength and confidence. So yeah, it just was a good place.
Yeah, and I want you to take a few moments to just walk us through where you are now, because I know you got an album that's coming out.
Sure.
And you got an upcoming album coming out. Tell us about what we can expect on the album, what we can look to hear.
Yeah, well, this album is called No Looking Back. We're going to be having a single release January 21st of the single called Proof from the album No Looking Back. But it's basically an album that's influenced heavily by like the 80s. In 80s and hip hop. It's a fusion of 80s, not 80s hip hop, but 80s kind of music and like 90s hip hop, if you will. Mm-hmm. So in the more modern forms of that, because I'm an avid listener of hip hop as well, but the jazz kind of brings it all together. The sounds, the synth sounds of the 80s, kind of like, as I said in one of my previous interviews, kind of like Stranger Things, that show, they use a lot of these 80s synths, you know mm-hmm. what I mean? And I found those to be really, really, really intriguing. And so I saw a keyboard player that could put those sounds into my compositions. And, it's just very forward-looking, but also nostalgic for a guy like myself, because I guess I'm an 80s baby.
Yeah. Listen, being an 80s baby is not a bad thing. Listen, I want to take a break, but coming up after the break, I want to talk about neo jazz fusion. What does this mean? Right? Somebody wants to know all about that. So listen, I want you to know Majid Khaliq, our guest here on Perspective. Stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. And welcome back to Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you. And we thank you for sharing your Thanksgiving holiday with us. We're here and got a very special show and a very special guest, Majid Khaliq, who is definitely somebody that you want to know about. As we talked in the last segment about the new album that's coming out, talking about the violin and talking about classical music. The 80s, that's what you need to pay attention to. If you're into that 80s sound, guess what? He is your man and then some. But I want to tell you, Majid, thanks again for sharing this Thanksgiving holiday with us. When we talk about the work that you're doing, I mean, in the intro, we said that, you're the leader of this neo-jazz fusion movement. So can you describe for us what the neo-jazz fusion movement is really all about?
Well, neo-jazz is, it has a lot of modern flair. When it's named and coined the neo-jazz, that means that it has new influences into jazz. Like, for instance, another person who is doing a lot of new things would be Robert Glasper. He's doing more neo R&B type jazz sort of stuff, a lot of R&B, heavy R&B influence. But it's really incorporating the newer influences into the jazz and pushing it forward. Whereas traditional jazz, or trad jazz is what they call it, or straight ahead, is more looking more into the past for, or the far past, more like not 80s, more like 50s and like 40s and, late 60s to gain their inspiration. I'm more looking into the future, so I have some trap sounds, or I have some, more modern type sounds, more modern rock type sounds in it. And I also am influenced by the past, because if you don't know your past, you don't know where your future is.
Yeah. But talk to me, because every artist has this idea in mind, right? I want to impact the culture. I want to shift the culture. Where do you land on the scope where you say, listen, this is how I want to shift it, or this is the space that I'm trying to create for my music? Right.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a violinist. That's first and foremost. I don't play the trumpet. I play in jazz, but I don't play the trumpet. You know what I mean? And I don't play the saxophone. And that in itself puts it in a space that's going to be very different from the leaders on those perspective instruments, trumpet and saxophone, and so that's going to be very different. Secondly, I'm utilizing all of the influences from classical music into the sound that I'm putting out. So when you hear the music, you're going to hear a lot of also strings in the back other than my own lead string. My lead string will be there, but then you'll hear like cello, and you'll hear like viola, and you'll hear, because those are also in there. I kind of brought the symphony with me while I was incorporating into this other sound. So it's always present in every single piece on that album. You'll hear it all over there.
Yeah. So talking about being a Black violinist, I mean, I actually know about the group of Black Violins. I mean, that's dope. I mean, their music is, I mean, if you ever checked out the Black Violins, I mean, they're dope.
Yes,
but
sir.
To be a Black violinist, right?
Right.
We don't always hear that. We don't always see that, right? So talk to me about what that's like navigating the waters, because you're already a minority, right? But then you're in the minority when it comes to navigating that field. So talk to me about how you've been able to navigate those waters.
Oh man, it's been a unique ride. I have to say, being a Black jazz violinist. First of all, let me just say, being a Black violinist, to address your question, it's challenging. I mean, it's challenging from the perspective of what's being promoted. You know what I mean? The image of African Americans doing anything outside of the traditionally sketched out roles that we have, and they're very tight, these roles. They're very defined. They're not defined by us, but they're defined by others. And so trying to get people to view you outside of those roles can be challenging, first and foremost. Secondly, being a jazz violinist is a challenge, because now a Black jazz violinist, what they expect you to be doing. All right, now I have to be able to define myself. I have to be the type of man that I know I'm going to be, and I have to be unwavering and they say unapologetic about my approach. So it's been challenging, but you know what? To be honest with you, I've enjoyed the the singular road that I have. The one thing about the challenges is just it's not that many folks who's willing to jump into that space. They're like, nah, I'm good. I'll just go ahead and do some things that are a little bit more, I guess I'm on the road less traveled, so I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed the company of myself and knowing that if I'm making a mistake, there are some people that I can look at, but my contemporaries are few. The people who are in the same lane doing things that I'm doing. There's very few, if any.
Yeah. So who do you take for inspiration? I mean, when you're coming up and doing what you're doing, who are some of the people that really played that part and inspired you?
Well, I've had a really unique opportunity to study with the late great John Blake Jr. He is a jazz violinist, African American jazz violinist, who made his name playing with McCoy Tyner as well. Many other people, Grover Washington, he was in Grover's band, and he wrote music for him, and he was a big timer in that sense. He was really in the 70s, 80s period. That was really his space where he was flowering, his career was. But I had an opportunity to stay with him for like 15 years. And I still to this day play his music, and I let people know about his existence because he wasn't as famous as some others. But I also gain a lot of inspiration from Noel Pointer, who is another African American jazz violinist, and Jean-Luc Ponty, who's living today. He's a French gentleman. He's crazy good. Jean-Luc Ponty and Michael Urbaniak, these are European jazz violinists that kind of in the same space as me in terms of the sense that they play non-traditional or fusion type styles of jazz music. More traditional is Stefan Grappelli, Stuff Smith. Stuff Smith was a king on the jazz violin. So.
Well, I want to take a quick break and come back and talk a little bit more about your music, but I also want to talk about what you're doing beyond the music. So, stay with us for a few minutes. Majid's going to be with us. We'll be right back right here on Perspectives, sharing the Thanksgiving holiday with us, and we thank you, and we got some show for you. So, got to have a little bit more, so stay with us. Come right back in a few. And welcome back to joining us on this Thanksgiving edition of Perspectives. I'm Daren Jaime. I really want to thank you for watching. As always, it's been a pleasure really to bring perspectives into your homes, but it's really special for us to have the opportunity to bring perspectives during this Thanksgiving holiday. And so to all those who've been watching, to all those who've been supporting the show down through the years, it's hard to believe, but we've been doing this for like 20 years. And so, thank you for being with us and sharing with us here on this Thanksgiving edition. Our guest, Majid Khaliq, and been talking a little bit about his music, about the influences, and who have been the people, because when you look at jazz and being a jazz violinist, a Black jazz violinist, African-American, it's rough out there because you don't see too many. But Majid shared a little bit more about who some of those influences are. But I want to turn the tables now, Majid, if you take it for a few moments to just share with us a little bit about, what else is going on with you? Because I know you got music going on, but in addition to performing, what else do you got? What else do you have going on for you?
Well, I mean, it's good that you asked that, Daren, because a big part of my life is obviously composition and all of those musical things, but I also enjoy quite a bit of teaching. Earlier in the first segment, we spoke about my experiences at Harlem School of the Arts. Well, it just so happens that I am also a teacher at Harlem School of the Arts. I've been there for about 5 years, as well as I'm a teacher at Kipp Academy Middle School in the South Bronx. So I'm out here, each one teach one, making sure that I'm sharing the messages of the transferable power of music to the younger generation coming up. So yeah.
And I like to have this conversation because when you talk about music and education, I mean, it rings a bell for me because when you look at what's going on right now and you look and you see what's happening in, you know, current society, we're all going through these budget cuts. And the first line item in the budget cuts is always the athletic department and the music department. And it's always these two departments that are always left to fend for themselves, but they turn out such tremendous talent and gifts. But give me your take on that, man, because that's got to hurt. But I also see how you're doing a job coming from another angle of really trying to fill in that gap. Right.
Well, I mean, as you said, yeah, you know, music education has always been under attack, but this is a historic thing. It's simply because it's not something that's easily quantifiable. And when you realize the gifts that music bring, you might want to ask yourself, why would they attack this? Well, we live in a capitalistic society, and so if it's not quantifiable, it's quite hard to give support to. But in reality, what it actually gives, and it pays in spades. It really pays it gives great dividends, is quality of life. This is undeniable. Music education gives children a greater quality of life. If you're looking for quality of life, we can talk about, you know, music education transferring to math schools or math scores or English scores, or either way, the quality of life is far more important than any of those things. So I believe that being on the side of music education means that I really have a role that is ensuring that young people can value some of the finer things in life while they work their jobs, while they go through this crazy thing called life. This they call it the rat race of trying to make ends meet. The thing that's making you feel good about yourself and feel of value, are these moments of music, and the education in music allows you to have more of those moments in your life. So, yeah.
And so for people who want to check out your music, find out where they can check you out, what do they do?
Well, you know, you can go to majidviolin.com. That's my website. Or you can hit me up on social media, where I'm at God Violin on Instagram, at God Violin on Facebook, and at God Violin on Twitter. And if you want to find me on YouTube, my YouTube is Majid Violin. YouTube.com/Majid Violin. So. Yeah.
And so what's next for you? I mean, you got the album coming out, and obviously you got to be excited doing some promotion there, of course. And want to go check out the album for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm always excited about music, but you know, I got a couple more things in the burner, trying to keep things cooking and going. But right now, I'm focusing on the release of the single "Proof" off the album, which is going to be January 21st, and you can look for that on all streaming platforms as well. We're going to be looking to release that album, you know, early 2020. You know, so. Yeah. Look for it.
And so for you, what's it been like? Because given the fact that so many times performers really get their, you know, they get the blood flowing by being able to perform in front of people, and COVID has had that impact where we're just now getting back to having live performances, stadiums, the whole 9 yards. Talk to me about what that shutdown meant for you.
Well, the shutdown was a real big. It was a blessing and a curse. First and foremost, it's funny you talk about it because just an hour ago, I got my booster shot. So
okay, that's
you know what I'm saying. So, but you know, during COVID, I found myself being able to be resourceful in the sense of having small pre-taped concerts and things like that. So the party in terms of music playing never ended for me. I just did put up some cameras, had some audio equipment in the room, got my guys together, and we did it, and then we put it out on YouTube. So there's a number of COVID collage videos that I did, a number of live videos that I did. And so COVID helped. I was never stopped by COVID in that sense. Yeah, it's nice to be in front of people. Let's be clear. I don't want to be, there's nothing that, replaces that experience. But there are some gifts, I was able to spend a lot more time with my family. I was able to spend more time with my daughter. And now, 3 weeks ago I had a son. So, and now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, he's a gift from COVID.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of COVID babies out there, but that's another show. I'll tell you that. I mean, yes, a lot of the population has increased, so to speak.
Yes, but I'm trying to look at it in the positive. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
and so really for you, an opportunity to really look forward towards the future. Got the new album that's coming out, got the holidays coming out. So what's it now here? Like, is it a prep time for you to just, really say, listen, as we get ready to get the album out, there's some things we just gotta, fine tune and get done. That's what it's like, I sense.
Absolutely. I have we're gonna be preparing for a second video for the second single off of the album. We're trying to figure out which one that's gonna be. It's probably gonna be a piece of music entitled You. I recently we had a remix of that, and it's gonna be featuring Yancy Abril on vocals for that one, and we're gonna be shooting a video for that. So I'm just super excited about letting people know the sorts of things that I'm doing. And who knows, I do have some things that I can put out there during the Christmas holiday. So
yeah, look out, right? I guess we gotta leave it there and talk about look out. So Majid Khaliq, listen, I want to thank you for spending the Thanksgiving holiday with us here on Perspective. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, and best wishes as you get ready to go to the new year and the new album coming out.
Thank you so much, Daren. I appreciate you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about the music, and happy Thanksgiving to you as well, and to all of you guys out there watching.
That's it. Well, we always show Harlem love. I want you to know that too. Hey, but make sure you come on back. So you have an open door here, so make sure you come on back, and hopefully we'll get you on the other side of 2022. Majid Khaliq, thanks again, brother.
All right. My pleasure.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, I want to let you know we have come to the end of this Thanksgiving episode of Perspectives. I want to thank you for joining us. And listen, make sure you share your perspective with somebody else. We were joking just a few minutes ago talking about COVID and the burdens of COVID, but there have been some blessings in COVID. First of all, that we're all still here to be able to talk about it is a blessing all by itself. But the second part is that there have been a lot of good things that have actually come, whether it's the formation of family, rekindling, and I know some people say it's not been a good season, but for those of us, we have to find some sort of silver lining in it. And so as we're still trying to navigate ourselves through it, let's keep our heads up. Let's keep the prayers going, and let's be thankful, because that's what this week is all about, saying Thanksgiving. And for those who've lost family members throughout this time of COVID and also entering towards this Thanksgiving season, we want to send you our thoughts, and we want to let you know that certainly you're in our hearts and our prayers, because I know that every holiday is not always a good holiday for people, but in spite of and because of, we still give thanks. So listen, thank you for watching here on Perspectives. I'm Daren Jaime. Until the next time we meet, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. You just don't know. It might make a difference in somebody else's life.
Bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, just speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective, which shines a light, cause it might make